Syngenta Crop Protection Canada and C&M Seeds present the Wheat School on realagriculture.com.
Well, stripe rust is one of the three important rust diseases in Western Canada: the stem rust, leaf rust, and stripe rust. Stripe rust has been traditionally more of a problem along the western slopes of the prairies, or western slopes of the Rockies. And the reason that is because stripe rust is a cool temperature disease, so it likes the cooler infection temperatures. So the increased altitude in southern Alberta is coupled with the influence of the mountains. Stripe rust has always sort of been a problem in southern Alberta and in the western part of Western Canada. Well, the disease situation started last year. Last year we had stripe rust in a small way come into the winter wheat crop, but at that point we learned something quite interesting, and that was that the Radiant winter wheat, the variety Radiant, was susceptible, and before last year Radiant was resistant. So that means the resistance that it had was no longer effective. So there had been a change in the race populations. A new race came in and overtook the resistance in Radiant. So then the disease built up on the winter wheat crop last summer, and then it moves, not in a big way, but in a small way, to the spring wheat crop. And then as we had a very cool, wet summer last summer, the spring wheat crop the maturity was prolonged, so therefore it didn't mature until September, October, and this created what we refer to as the green bridge, which is basically a bridge from one green crop to another. So in this case, it was a green bridge from the infected spring wheat crop, and it created a green bridge to the planted winter wheat crop last fall. And we noticed last fall that there was a lot of winter wheat that was infested with stripe rust. So and that normally isn't a real big problem because the low winter temperatures during the winter usually kill off the stripe rust fungus. But and we fully expected that. But last winter was kind of an interesting winter, even though we got very low temperatures. It was a cold winter last winter. We had a lot of snow, and the snow apparently was sufficient to insulate the crop so that it didn't get those low killing temperatures. And it's for that reason that this spring we saw that the fungus had overwintered in southern Alberta. So normally the fungus would blow in from the Pacific Northwestern United States, Washington, Idaho, Utah, and it usually blows in late. So it really doesn't frequently cause a lot of problems, but because it overwinters here, then it's able to start very early on the crop and move and spread out. And that's what happened on the winter wheat crop, and now of course it's moving into the spring wheat crop, and we're seeing a lot of damage to winter wheat as well as the spring wheat. Well, certainly the winter wheat was caught heavily damaged. What we are seeing now is that many people are spraying, okay? So there's a lot of fungicide going down right now to protect what's left of the winter wheat crop, although in our estimation most of the winter wheat crop was hit pretty hard. We're seeing that movement to the spring wheat crops, and a lot of the spring wheat crop is susceptible, and so it's building up on the winter wheat crop as well. Of course, southern Alberta is a hot spot. So basically, south of Highway Number 1 in southern Alberta, we've seen a lot of it. We've had reports, though, in winter wheat up in Oyen, so that's in the central part of the province. We've had reports in Saskatoon, Melfort, Regina, so that means, and Swift Current. So it's moving towards it's certainly moving into Saskatchewan in a northeasterly direction. So, and that's consistent with the prevailing winds that occur from the southwest to the northeast prairies. The disease produces the fungus produces pustules on the leaves, and these pustules are loaded with spores, and these spores can travel quite a long distance. So what that happens is they're released into the air in wind or by wind and rain, and they eventually work their way up into the upper atmospheres, and they can actually travel hundreds of miles before being washed down in a rain, and this can create a spore shower. We call it a spore shower, and it'll settle onto the crop, and then with the rain and the humidity and cool temperatures, then you can get quite extensive infection. What we've had this spring is cool, moist conditions. Even despite the warm, dry conditions we've had for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, striped rust can actually, all it needs is sort of a layer of water on the leaves in order to infect. And so a heavy morning dew is sufficient to permit it to cause infection. So we've been getting those dews every morning, regardless of whether we've had hot, dry weather. So we foresee that the conditions are continuing, even as today the conditions for infections are sufficient to give us good striped rust infection. Interestingly enough, rusts have a special ability to cause a lot of damage, and the striped rust is a really good example. It forms long stripes on the leaves, and this actually causes a disruption of the wax layer, the protective layer that plants have. And so by causing a disruption, the plant loses a lot of moisture, a lot of leaf moisture, and during a striped rust epidemic, the leaves will dry down very quickly. And if you get your flag leaf and your flag -1 leaf drying down, then there goes your yield, because so it really doesn't take a lot of physical damage to destroy your leaves, you see. And for this reason, rusts, including striped rust, can be very damaging, just because of that ability to cause a desiccation of the plant. Well, you'll see it out in the field. You're looking for a very bright orange pustules or patches of pustules on the leaves, and one good way to know that you've got it is when you walk through the fields, check your shoes, okay? And if they're showing up with an orange powder on it, that means you've got striped rust, because nothing else will give you that. But by the time you see that, then your field is pretty heavily infested. So you really want to get down and look for the orange pustules, as the plant matures, you start to see these nice stripes on the leaves, and so at that point you have to start making a decision to spray and protect whatever remaining green tissues you have from becoming infected with striped rust.
So you should be scouting early for this.
That's a good point. With the potential now for striped rust over winter, you should be out early in your crops, whether it's winter wheat in the spring or your spring crops in the spring, and check it out. And this should be standard practice for any disease or for any problem. If you've got insect problems or disease problems, you want to get out in your field and look for abnormal things on your leaves, like pustules pustules or leaf spots or insect damage. And it's at that point when you're aware of the situation early in your field, you can make a decision of whether to control it and talk to the experts, talk to somebody who can give you some good advice. And at that point, you make it as a management decision. So that is to say, am I going to get my money back if I apply the protective measure, in this case of a fungicide? Am I going to get that money back plus extra money on top of that? And if the answer is yes, then it makes good sense to apply that fungicide or whatever other control measure you're going to use. Well, for your first and your best control measure, of course, is planting resistant varieties. That's the best you can do. From the standpoint of spring wheats, there are good resistance, good resistant varieties that are very popular and high yielding. So I would go to the provincial recommendation list, select a variety that's resistant to striped rust, and start at that point. If you've got a susceptible variety, and for example, if you do choose to grow winter wheat, and right now we don't have good resistance in winter wheat. If you choose to grow winter wheat, you have to monitor your fields. You have to be able to recognize stripe rust, and then make a decision when it's coming into your field. You make the decision whether you're going to apply a protective or a spray to reduce the damage caused by stripe rust. And generally, up until and including the flowering stage is the appropriate time to consider spraying a fungicide on your plant. Obviously, after the flowering stage, yield tends to be pretty well set, and so it's not so important. And in fact, you'll get less of a return for your investment dollar if you apply a fungicide later. And I think there are many labels don't allow you to. Fungicide labels prevent you from spraying too late because of the residual effect. So I would say that if you have it in your field, you know it's a susceptible variety, then at that point you make the decision, the management decision to spray and to reduce the damage caused by stripe rust.